Many of us will be familiar with the story of King Leonidas I, the ruler of Sparta, and his heroic last stand at Thermopylae, alongside 300 Spartans and thousands of other Greek allied forces, against the much larger and more powerful Persian army led by King Xerxes. And in this epic battle, King Leonidas and his men would all be killed and defeated by the Persian army. And that is the general set of events that most mainstream audiences are familiar with. But that is not where the story of King Leonidas comes to its conclusion, as his body would be subjected to much desecration and dishonor by Xerxes, and the Spartans would go to great lengths to retrieve the body of their fallen king. And in this video, we will explore the untold story of King Leonidas after Thermopylae, and delve into ancient sources such as Herodotus and Posthumous to better understand the events surrounding the Spartan king's body and his legacy after his death. But before we begin, don't forget, if you want to find out more about the deaths of some of history's greatest figures, then subscribe to my channel, Historical Exit. Our most in-depth depiction of the final moments and the heroic actions of the Greeks during the Battle of Thermopylae comes to us directly from Herodotus in his works The Histories, which were written about 50 years after the death of King Leonidas. In the Histories, Herodotus states that the Spartan forces held off the Persian army for 3 days before eventually being betrayed by Ephialtes, who revealed a hidden mountain path to the Persians, allowing the Persians to encircle and overwhelm the Greek forces, which consisted of the 300 Spartans and several thousand Thespians and Thebans. Herodotus vividly paints in his work the bravery and ferocity with which the Greeks fought off the enemy, stating that they resisted to the last, such as still had swords using them, and the others resisting with hands and teeth. And in this chaotic and brutal last stand, King Leonidas would fall early in the battle, and both the Spartans and Persians would fight fiercely to retrieve the body of the Spartan king. Herodotus recounts that it is said that the battle was the fiercest where Leonidas fell, for the Greeks strove to recover his body and the Persians to seize it. But in the end, the Persians would be the victors of the encounter, and after the Battle of Thermopylae had concluded, the body of Leonidas would fall into the possession of the Persians. Generally, this would not be an issue, as the Persians had a long-standing tradition of respecting and honoring the bodies of valiant adversaries who had displayed great courage and bravery in battle. But this was not to be the case for Leonidas, as Xerxes was so frustrated and angered by the fierce and drawn-out resistance of the Greek forces led by Leonidas that he decided not to honor the body of this brave Spartan king, but to desecrate and dismember it instead. Herodotus records in the Histories that Xerxes ordered that the head of Leonidas be cut off and his body be crucified. Such a brutal act of mutilation must have been as shocking to the Persians as it was to the Greeks, as crucifixion was considered a humiliating death, and to perform it on a corpse was a vivid expression of the utter contempt and hatred Xerxes felt towards Leonidas. With this brutal act against the body of a respected and honored warrior king, Xerxes highlighted to all the dominance of Persia and the deadly consequences that would befall any individual who dared to defy his forces and his might. However, crucially, the story of Leonidas' body does not end there, with the king's corpse being brutally desecrated and dishonored to be forever forgotten by the Greeks and Spartans alike. In fact, the legacy of Leonidas would continue to flourish after his death, and the Spartans felt duty-bound to retrieve the bones of their fallen king and bring them back to Sparta to be appropriately buried and honored in his homeland. And Posthumous states in his works Description of Greece that about 40 years after the Battle of Thermopylae, the Spartans would finally be able to bring the remains of their beloved king back to Sparta, stating that the bones of Leonidas were brought back to Sparta 40 years after the Battle of Thermopylae, and a tomb was built for him in the place where he is now honored with a yearly festival. So generally, most people's stories end with their death, but Leonidas was an extraordinary individual whose corpse went through a full cycle of events, starting with humiliating desecration and crucifixion, to a decorated and embellished tomb where his memory and sacrifice could be honored for all time. His body, which was once displayed as a warning and threat to Greeks, was now enshrined as a symbol of Spartan ideals such as duty, sacrifice, and the courage to resist against tyranny. Today, in the northern part of Sparta, there remains a tomb-like structure which is traditionally associated with being the final resting spot of King Leonidas. However, no archaeological excavations or evidence has ever been identified to solidify this claim, but it is still fascinating to see that Leonidas' body still holds a position of interest to many people all across the world even to this day. Leonidas lived an exemplary life for a Spartan king, and his legacy has endured for thousands of years, but the story of the events surrounding his body and final moments have largely been forgotten till now. So I hope you found this video to be interesting and educational, and if you did enjoy it, please do like and share this video with others. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to my channel Historical Exit so you can find out more about the deaths of some of history's greatest figures. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye.